Hello, welcome to the 8th grade math end of year exam, or whatever it's called in your state, maybe EOC, which is end of course, state test, standardized test, final exam. So anyway, this will help prepare you for your upcoming exam. So what I want you to know, first of all, is that I will be using a calculator here, but it's up to you to actually understand the concepts as far as what's going on. There are some states that allow calculators, other states do not. So please be sure that you take responsibility for your own learning, but at least make sure that you understand the concepts behind what's going on here. So with that, I wish you the best of luck, and let's begin. Okay, so our first problem is asking us, what is the value of 2 times the quantity 4 plus 6 squared? So if you take a look here, we have our acronym GEMDAS. G is for grouping symbols, E is for exponents, MD is for multiplication and division, and you perform those operations according to what appears first from left to right, as if you are reading a book. The same with addition and subtraction. So let's go ahead and begin by solving this problem right here. So let's go ahead and rewrite it. So we have 2 times the quantity 4 plus 6, and that is squared. Okay, so if you take a look here, we have an operation to perform within this grouping symbol here, specifically parentheses. So let's go ahead and bring down the 2. It will add 4 plus 6, which is equal to 10, and that is squared. So notice I brought up the exponent as well. So now we have to perform exponents. So we have this base of 10, and we have to multiply it to itself. And we have to multiply 10 times 10 because this exponent is telling us to multiply the base times itself, okay? So that is 10 times 10, which is equal to 100. And 2 times 100 is equal to 200. All right, so let's go ahead and move right along here. Next, we have, what is the negative square root of 256? Okay, so if you are familiar with your common squares and your common square roots, then you would know that the answer here is 16 because, or negative 16, let's ignore the negative sign for a moment, because the square root of 256 is asking us which number multiplied times itself equals 256, and that is 16. And don't forget about your negative sign out in front. Okay, so the answer here is negative 16. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, so this is asking, so we have this statement, if x equals 4 and n equals 2, then we're answering the question, what is the value of 1/8 times the quantity x cubed minus 6 times the quantity n squared plus 4? So let's go ahead and rewrite this expression down here. So we have 1/8, and we're going to fill in what we do know. So we have x cubed, which is 4 cubed because x is 4, minus 6 times, and we have n squared, which is simply 2 squared, plus 4. Okay, so now we have to perform the operations within the group of parentheses here. However, we have to solve this square root problem, this exponent problem first, right? So we are simply multiplying this base of 4 3 times because the exponent of 3 is telling us to do so. So we have 1/8 times 4 times 4 times 4, which is 64, minus 6. And then we have 2 squared plus 4. So this is simply 2 times 2, which is 4, plus 4. So now we can subtract in this first group of parentheses and then add in the second group of parentheses. So let's go ahead and bring down our 1/8. So this is equal to 64 minus 6, which is 58, times 4 plus 4, which is 8. So if you can recognize that this is multiplication and it is commutative, then you can simply multiply in whichever order you see fit. So I'm going to multiply 1/8 by 8. And the reason why is because that answer is 1. And so 8 is simply 8 over 1 as well, if you can recognize that. And multiplying across the numerators and denominators gives you 8 over 8, which is equal to 1. So I can take this 1 and multiply it by what's left over, which is 58. And so our answer here is 58. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on to the next problem. Okay, so here we have a word problem. So I'm just going to start off by reading what the question is asking us. What is the percent decrease in the amount of sodium in this food product? So I see the keywords percent decrease. So this is letting me know that I will be using the formula, new amount minus the old amount divided by the old amount. Okay, so I like to write it this way. So I'll say new, N for new, minus old for old, over old, times 100. Okay, or the old can stand for original amount. Okay, so now let's go ahead and read this problem thoroughly. So we have a food company reduced the amount of sodium in one of their food products from 500 milligrams to 410 milligrams. What is the percent decrease in the amount of sodium in this food product? Okay, and so if you get a negative percent, that is telling us that that is the decrease, okay? But your final answer will be in the positive, okay? Since we know that we're talking about a percent decrease. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and plug in our known values. So our new amount is 410 milligrams, and the reason why is because the amount of sodium in one of their food products was reduced from 500 to 410 milligrams, which is the new amount. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug that in. So the new amount is 410 minus the old amount, or the original amount is 500. And this is divided by the original amount or old amount, which is 500, times 100. All right, so let's go ahead and calculate what's in the numerator. So we have 410 minus 500, which is equal to negative 90. And that's over 500 multiplied by 100. Okay, so if you take a look here, we know that this is going to be a negative decimal number, right? Because 90 divided by 500 is negative 90 divided by 500 is negative 0.18. So I'll place 0.18 here. And this is multiplied by 100. Now, if you can recognize, since we're multiplying by 100, this decimal can be moved 2 places to the right. And that gives us negative 18. However, since we're talking about a percent decrease, we're not going to leave our answer as negative 18, but it is negative 18. 18%. That's the decrease, 18% decrease, okay? All right, so let's move right along here. So this is asking us, which number is an irrational number? So remember, irrational numbers are numbers that have no pattern to them. They just go on and on without any rhyme or reason, really. So you can do a lot of elimination here right at the beginning, because if you take a look at answer choice A, we have 7.388. So this decimal number is either repeating or it terminates, okay? So that means that it can be rewritten as a ratio, okay? Or as a fraction. So we know that we can eliminate choice A. What about the square root of 13? Well, if you're familiar with your common squares and common square roots, then you know that this is an irrational number, okay? Because it's not perfect. What about, so we'll place a check mark here, since that's definitely a choice. What about C? We have the negative square root of 25. So we know that taking the square root of 25 is equal to 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, right? And so this is simplified to negative 5, and negative 5 can be written as a fraction or a ratio, okay? So we know this is not the correct answer. What about negative 32? Negative 32 can be written as a ratio or a fraction, right? Negative 32 over 1. So we know this is not the correct answer. So the correct answer in this case is answer choice B. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem here. Which of the following values make this statement true? Okay, so here, if you take a look, we have 1.1 times 10 to the 0 power. And recognize that any number raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So 1.1 times 1 is equal to 1.1, because remember, a number multiplied by 1 is that number. Okay, so we can simply say this is 1.1. And by the way, we're going to change all of our values into decimals here, so that way it's easier to compare. And then we have 12 sevenths. Okay, so we can go ahead and divide the numerator by the denominator, and that's equal to 1.71 rounded to the nearest hundredth. So I'm rounded to the nearest hundredth here. Okay, so now let's take a look at our answer choices. So we have 143%. Let's go ahead and turn this into a decimal. So we have this percent. So let's go ahead and rewrite that over here. And we're going to take the decimal point, which is right here, imaginary decimal point, and move it 2 places to the left. And that gives us 1.43. Okay, so what about 2 1/6? So we have this whole number of 2. There's a decimal after it. And let's take and divide the numerator by the denominator. So dividing the numerator by the denominator, 1/6, is equal to 0.17, and that's rounded to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so we already know there's a 2, and I'm just attaching the 17 here, 2.17. And then we have 15.5%. We're just taking this decimal point and moving it 2 places to the left. So let me go ahead and just rewrite that here so you can see. Okay, and then take this decimal point, moving it 2 places to the left, 1, 2. It ends up right here. And so this is equal to 0.155. And last but not least, you can take a look at this exponent. It is -1. So we're just simply taking and moving this decimal point 1 place to the left, which makes it 0.13. So right away, I'm going to eliminate answer choices C and D. And the reason why is because 1.1 is not less than 0.155, is not less than 0.13. So meaning that 1.1 times 10 to the 0 power is not less than 15.5%, and it's not less than 1.3 times 10 to the negative first power. So now let's look at answer choices A and B. All right, so I'm taking a look at A, and we have 1.43. 1.1 is less than 1.43. 1.43 is less than 1.71. So that's a choice right here. And then what about B? 2.17. 1.1 is less than 2.17, but 2.17 is not less than 1.71. So we can eliminate answer choice B. So our correct answer is A. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move right along. So we have this word problem here, and let me go ahead and begin by reading what the question is asking. Okay, so what was the total cost of only the white chocolate candy bars? Okay, so we know that we're looking for a total cost of just a specific type of candy, okay? So that means we're taking a fraction of something. All right, so let's go ahead and read through this word problem. Denise bought a total of 64 candy bars. Each candy bar cost 33 cents, including tax. Of the candy bars she bought, 5/8 were white chocolate. What was the total cost of only the white chocolate candy bars? All right, so we know we're talking about 5/8 of white chocolate candy bars, and we need to know the total cost of the white chocolate candy bars. All right, so in order to find out how many white chocolate candy bars there are, we have to actually multiply 5/8 by 64. And remember, this keyword of right here is simply telling you to multiply. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we have 5/8 times 64. And then to make this easier on yourself, if you want to, you can place this 64 over 1. It doesn't change the value of the number, okay? So you can check here, and we can simplify this before multiplying across the numerators and across the denominators. Those of you who are not allowed to use calculators. Okay, so this 8 goes into 8 once. 8 goes into 64 8 times. And then we're multiplying across the numerators and denominators, and we have 40 over 1. And I'll just leave 40 here because 40 over 1 is the same value as 40. Okay, so now we know that we have a total of 40 white chocolate candy bars. However, we have to know what the cost is. And so each candy bar costs 33 cents. So since each candy bar costs 33 cents, including tax, we have to multiply 40 by 33 cents. And so multiplying that, we get, let's see, 40 times 0.33, and that's $13.20. So that is answer choice C. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Okay, so we're going to put the following in order from least to greatest. So looking at the answer choices here, I see that we are working with scientific notation. So let's go ahead and take a look at this exponent. It's -1. So this is telling us to simply move this decimal point one place to the left. And so when we do that, we end up with 0.15. So this is equal to 0.15. All right, and what about B? We have 2.2 times 10 to the first power. Looking at this exponent here, we can simply take and move that decimal point one place to the right. And so this gives us 22. So I will place 22 here. And I'm going to line up the decimal points too to make it easier to read for comparison. And then we have 1.5 times 10 to the -2nd power. So this is actually telling us to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So that's 1, 2, and that's 0.015. So 0.015. Okay, we'll place zeros here and here. And then last but not least, we have 3.5 times 10 to the -2nd power. So we're also going to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So we have 1, 2. And that's 0.035. So we'll place that here. 0.035. And we'll just place zeros in the whole numbers position to make it easier here. Okay, so now we see already that B is the greatest value, so we're not going to worry about that too much, okay? So let's just focus on the last 3 remaining values. So we have 0.1, 0.0, 0.0. Okay, so we know that this is the next greatest value. So let's just focus on these 2 values right here, because we have zeros in the same place values position in the 10th place, right? So let's go over to the 100th position. So we have a 1 here and we have a 3 here. So that means that this is the smaller value, right? So we can place number 1 here. So we're going in order from least to greatest. So the number 1 will go here. And then the next smallest value is this one here, because if we compare 0.0 to 0.1, 0.0 is smaller. So that's number 2. And then, so let me go across these out since we've completed that. And then let's go ahead and compare 0.1 and 22. So we know that 0.1 comes next. So that's number 3. And then we have number 4. So C comes in first. That's the least. Followed by D. Followed by A. And then A. I'm sorry, then B. Okay? So that's how you work with those particular problems. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next question. Oops, sorry about that. The next one should be this one. Okay, so here we have another word problem. So let me go ahead and read what the question is asking us. And is asking, what was Juno's monthly payment for this iPad? Okay, so we know that Juno purchased an iPad and he's making monthly payments. Okay. All right, so let's see here. Let's go ahead and read this problem out thoroughly. Juno bought an iPad for $446.48, including tax. He made a down payment of $24 and paid the balance in 8 equal monthly payments. What was his monthly payment? Okay, so here we see that he purchased an iPad for this amount, but he also made a down payment on it. So that means we have to subtract $24 from the full amount of $446.48. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we have $446.48. And we're going to subtract $24 from that. And so that's equal to 8, 4, bring down the decimal point. This is 2, 2, 4. So that's $422.48. But then he actually paid the balance of $422.48 in 8 equal monthly payments. So since he's done that, we can find out what those equal monthly payments were by dividing, right? That only makes sense because if you look at the dollar amounts here, they're much smaller than hundreds of dollars. Okay, so that's where we're going to divide. So let's take and divide $422.48 by 8. And so his monthly payment was $52.81. So that is answer choice A. Okay, so let's go ahead and move right along. Okay, so this question is asking us which pair of numbers are both between 8 and 9. So I'm looking at this keyword right here, between, and I'm looking at our answer choices. And so I see here that I will have to do some approximating because between is letting us know that there are numbers between 8 and 9. So that means they're going to be decimal numbers. So if I look at answer choice A, I have square root of 60. So I'm thinking to myself, well, the square root of 64 is 8. So that means that this number right here, square root of 60, is less than 8. So it must be 7 point something. So I know this is not going to work because 7 point something is not between 8 and 9, and it has to be both numbers. And I'm taking a look at the square root of 69. So I know that must be 8 point something because the square root of 64 is 8. Okay, so I'm going to eliminate answer choice A. What about answer choice B? Well, square root of 64 I know is 8. And then we have the square root of 81, which is 9. So 8 and 9 cannot be between 8 and 9. That's impossible. That's not even reasonable. Okay, eliminate B. Square root of 50. Well, I know that the square root of 49 is 7. So this is a little bit over 7. So I know this cannot be the correct answer either because both numbers have to be between 8 and 9. And then I know that the square root of 64 is 8. So this is just a little bit past 8. But again, like I said, both numbers have to be between 8 and 9. So we'll eliminate C, leaving us with answer choice D. So, and the answer is answer choice D because we have the square root of 65. The square root of 64 is 8. So this is 8 point something. And then we have the square root of 72. And so we know that the square root of 64 is 8. So this is a little bit past 8, more closer to, a little bit closer to 9 even. Not quite. So we know that these are both decimal numbers, 8 point something, okay? So the answer D is the correct choice. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. Let's clear this out first. And here we have a word problem. And so it looks like here, reading the ending statement, we have to round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so that sounds reasonable. And let's see what type of problem this is. Let me go ahead and read the question. So the question is asking, what is the percent increase in the number of butterflies Tina caught from the first week to the second week? Okay, so I know that this is one of those word problems where it's the new amount minus the original amount divided by the original amount times 100. Okay, so I'll just place new minus old divided by old times 100 as our formula here. New minus old divided by old times 100. Okay, so now let's go ahead and read the rest of this word problem. Tina caught 7 butterflies for her science project in the first week. She caught 11 butterflies in the second week. What is the percent increase in the number of butterflies Tina caught from the first week to the second week? Okay, so, and the reason why I already knew that this was this formula, new amount minus original amount divided by original amount, is because I took a close look and I saw percent increase before I even read the problem. So sometimes you want to do that to just to kind of work efficiently, quickly, but efficiently, although it's not a rush on this particular test, okay? So we see here that the new amount is 11, right? Because she caught 11 butterflies in the second week, all right? So we're going to place 11 where the new is. So let me just go ahead and write that over here. So we have 11 minus the original amount she caught was 7 butterflies, because remember this amount was caught in her first week, okay? So we see that right here, 7 butterflies caught in her first week. So we'll subtract 7 from 11, divided by 7, which is the original amount, times 100. Okay, so we can see that 11 minus 7 is 4. So we have 4/7 times 100. Okay, so we have 4 divided by 7. And that's equal to 0.57, about 0.57. Okay, multiplied by 100. All right, and you can simply notice here that we can take and move the decimal point 2 places to the right. Okay, and that's given us 57. And then when I took a look in my calculator, this is rounded to the nearest whole number, which in this case is 57. So that is 57%. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next question here. Okay, so this question is asking us which number in this list is not an integer. So first of all, you need to know what an integer is. So an integer are those numbers which include whole numbers and their opposites. So remember, whole numbers include 0. And then we have, let's say, 1, 2. And then on the other side, we have -1. We have -2. Okay, so these are all integers, and notice integers do not contain any decimals or fractions, okay? So with that being said, let's go ahead and simplify these list of numbers we have here. So we have 14 divided by 2, which is 7. So 7 is an integer, so that's not answering the question. So we can eliminate choice A. -6 squared. Okay, so we have this 6 that's being raised to the second power, so that's 36, and include the decimal, the negative sign. That's -36. All right, so this is an integer, right? What about the square root of 49? That is 7. So if you know your common square roots, then you know this is 7. And then we have a negative decimal number, so -2.6. All right, so this is not an integer because it contains a decimal. So we know that everything else is incorrect here. The answer choice that is correct is answer choice D. Okay, so that's it for this particular one. Let's move right along. And let's see. So this is asking us, I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to go. Okay, this is the correct one. Okay, so right here, this is asking us which statement best describes the square root of 70. Okay, if you know, like I say, your common square roots, you should be able to answer this question. So let's take a look at these answer choices here. So answer choice A is stating exactly 8. Well, we know it's not exactly 8 because the square root of 64 is 8. So we can eliminate choice A. Exactly 35? Well, this does not make any sense because the square root of 70 is not 35. We already established that the square root of 64 is 8. So this doesn't even make sense. It's not reasonable. Answer choice C. Okay, between 8 and 9. Well, this sounds reasonable because the reason why I say that is because if you take the square root of 64, like I said, that's equal to 8. And if you took the square root of 81, which is the next square root, that's 9. So the square root of 70 is right in between there. So this makes perfect sense. So the correct answer is answer choice C. And D is not reasonable at all. It doesn't even make sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue moving along here. So this is asking us, what is the value of 8/9 times y cubed when y equals 3/2? Okay, so what we're doing here is taking this expression, and since we have the y value is 3/2, we're just going to replace that with what we have here for y. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So we have 8/9 times y cubed. So we'll just place 3/2 here and then cube that because y is 3/2, as you can see here. All right, so if you take a look here, we have to perform order of operations, of course. So taking a look at the 3 in the numerator, well, we have to take this and multiply it by the power of 3. And then we'll do the same thing in the denominator, take the 2, and we're going to multiply that 3 times, okay, because of this power of 3. So let's go ahead and rewrite everything here. We have 8/9 times, and then 3 cubed is the same as 3 times 3 times 3, which is equal to 27. Over 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. So now we can go ahead and work this out. So recognize that this is multiplication. So if you want to, you can take the parentheses from out of there and just replace that with multiplication if you want to. So we have 8/9 times 27 over 8. All right, so now go ahead and simplify and reduce. So we have 8 that goes into 8 once, 8 goes into 8 once, 9 goes into 9 once, 9 goes into 27 3 times. So you can go ahead and multiply across the numerators and denominators, which 1 times 3 is 3, over 1 times 1 is simply 1, which is equal to 3. So our answer choice here is answer choice C. Okay, so this is all we have for the first part. Please stick around for the second part of this lesson. Thanks for watching.